Recording now.
Welcome everyone to this Venus Alchemy presentation on the Aries underworld journey that is ending on February 18th or 19th or 20th, I guess, depending on who's doing the calculating and what time zone you're in. Anyway, and this actually started in November, the end of November. So we've been in this process for a while, and we'll talk a little bit more about why we picked this particular date for doing this class and the amazing event that's happening right now that we'll speak into and kind of energize today as well. But first we're going to begin with a prayer, and we're going to begin with a prayer to the Dark Goddess. So I just invite everyone to take a deep breath, bring yourself present, whatever practices you have for grounding and getting present in the moment. And if you want to close your eyes and listen to this, one of the things that will happen is that there's going to be a PDF that'll be posted with the video, and so you can have this prayer to look at later, if it's something you want to connect in with while we're in the underworld. So here we go. Mighty goddess of disruption, death, and total transformation, thank you for helping me to feel what I must feel to be liberated and free. Thank you for helping me to have the courage to face my fears and shadow side. Thank you for helping with the courage to feel what I have been afraid to feel until now, including any hatred I may still have for myself or others, the immense pain of hurt, betrayal, guilt, and shame I have ever experienced. Thank you for helping me to transform all lower vibrational frequencies already mentioned, along with the ways I have rejected myself and others, all the ways I have judged myself as not enough, all the feelings I have around being abandoned by the divine, great mystery, great spirit, all that is, all the ways I have been wounded, punished, and judged by others, and the immense unfairness of it all. Thank you for helping me transmute all of this into love, compassion, confidence, and courage, restoring the cosmic balance, cosmic justice, cosmic awareness within myself and the world. I am deeply grateful for this is done, and this is so, and so it is. Blessed be.
Thank you, Cayelin. I just want to say that it feels so amazing always that we get to do this. We get to do this deeper underworld work. And sometimes I'll talk to people and they're like, oh, it just feels so heavy, so dark. And it's amazing because when you're actually working with shadow material, in anybody, you'll find a Jungian who's deeply in love with this work, or anyone who's in our circles, anyone who does this kind of death, rebirth, initiatory work in a conscious way. We come to find the opposite side of it is sort of true, that it actually can feel very enlivening. That's the intent of it. And I felt that with your prayer, just that aliveness underneath it. So we're so excited to do this webinar, and we're so excited to see new faces and to have beautiful faces that we've had here in our Venus community for a long time. And just a little bit of context, a lot of this will be experiential and not really so much focused on the astrology, but more on the experience of what this is. But to put it into context, Venus, the 19-month Venus cycle that we're now in the midst of, it's an initiatory journey which is guided by the Sumerian story of Inanna's descent into the underworld and her ascent from the underworld. And the death and rebirth that she goes through during a part of her cycle. So from about November 28, 2017 to about February 19th is the period where Venus, it's the underworld phase, as Venus is passing behind the sun, is no longer visible in either the morning or evening sky. The ancient Sumerians would have seen this as an encounter with the dark goddess, where Inanna, the great goddess, she enters the underworld, she encounters the dark goddess, she encounters her shadow self. That's how we see it, undergoing a ceremonial death and rebirth. So that is the moment that we are in right now in the Venus cycle. So we wanted to do this webinar so we could bring people we could offer a bit more about supporting people in this very real initiatory moment that so many of us can already feel, but might not have the words to describe exactly what's happening.
Beautiful.
And so we just want to celebrate, because this is so timely as we were creating this. Of course, the Golden Globes were happening just as we were preparing for this webinar, and we thought it was so perfect because Oprah Winfrey, as many of you probably already know, was nominated for she was nominated and she received an award, and her speech was so phenomenal, and it just so, I think, captured the gestalt of the times that we live in with the Me Too movement and its time, and what's happening right now with the divine feminine, and everything about this Aries and Venus cycle that we're in right now is about this rising up of the fierce feminine. So that during this, we are in a particular Venus cycle that is the Aries Venus cycle, and so we would say that the Aries meta goddess is on the world stage. That's part of what that means. So if you are born with this meta goddess, or if you have been born within a cycle that is the Aries Venus cycle, what that means is that every 8 years, we will have a repeating cycle where Venus rises as morning star in the sign of Aries. So if you were born in one of those cycles, then you have this meta goddess signature. If you have that or a strong Aries in your natal chart, you're here to help awaken and empower the fierce feminine, whose mission is to restore justice and sanity in a culture out of balance. So Oprah Winfrey was born in the Aries meta goddess phase, in the underworld phase of her journey. So she was actually born at a moment just like now, in an Aries Venus cycle in the underworld. She was born in that. So this gives us an idea of the power, of the intent, of what it means to embody the energy of this moment. She has acted boldly to empower women in the divine feminine in our world, exposing the shadow of misogyny and oppression of the feminine. And her speech at the Golden Globes was a call to further embolden the Aries goddess within each of us to rise up and take our place in bringing our world back into balance. And so we just thought it was really timely and kind of amazing that she is kind of a full, fierce embodiment of the energies we're talking about in this Aries Venus cycle.
Yeah, and the other thing is her birthday is January 29th, and she'll be turning 64. So she's in definitely that 8-year Venus return. 64 is one of those times, 56, 72, 80, but also 40, 48, going back to 32, 24, 16. So every 8 years, as Tami was speaking to. So she's in her 64 age 64 Venus return, and it is a 19-month cycle, so it's not just on her 64th birthday. She's been in it since March of last year, the end of March of last year, and continues to be in it until October 31st of this year. And so interesting that in the underworld time, she had this opportunity to share what she had to share. And we do have a transcript of what she spoke, and also a link to her speech at the end of this that will be posted. People will be able to access that, but they can also just read it
right,
if they want to, or if they don't want to click on links or whatever. So we made that available at the end.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So what's here, I was going to actually circle this, but I forgot to do that. We have the Sun, Venus, and Pluto all together today at 19 Capricorn. And so this is something, when Oprah was born, the Sun and Venus were conjunct at 9 Aquarius together. And when she was born, she's within 1 minute of that exact conjunction. And was really precise, kind of like how it is today in a way, so precise. Except it was an Aquarius, not Capricorn. And one of the things that happens in the cycle is it does shift every couple of years. So what we find is Venus in the underworld, meaning she's with the sun, the source of light and life for our planet, going through a death and rebirth process. And it's not a death to become a new incarnation, somebody else with a different name, but it's a Nana going through her death, and when she is reborn, she's still a Nana, but she's been through the shamanic initiation of death and rebirth. And so with having Pluto here, exactly conjunct Venus today, it's a double underworld signature that's energizing and increasing the possibility of even a more powerful death and rebirth than she's maybe ever experienced in the Aries meta-goddess expression. I don't know. I mean, we haven't really researched back to find out. But Venus is only, as an Aries meta-goddess, is only rising up for like, I think 104 years. Every 8 years she does that. And actually this is the last Aries meta-goddess on the world stage in our lifetime, and maybe in the next couple of lifetimes, as it'll be a couple hundred years before she comes back to Aries again. The next time Venus rises up in 8 years, in 2025, it'll be in Pisces. So this is a really remarkable and worthy cycle to be paying attention to collectively and on the world stage. So Pluto and Venus in the underworld, or Pluto actually and Venus in the underworld, that's not concerned with what you want or what you feel is fair or right or just, no matter how painful. It's like, I don't care about that. All I really care about, and Pluto's going to say, I don't care how hard it is for you. I don't care how challenging you feel it is right now. What I'm concerned about is the transformation of your soul. So that is the opportunity that we have before us right now. And regardless of whether you're in a Venus return or not, this is something everybody is feeling. And everybody has the opportunity to work with these energies. And again, one of the things we like to say is that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. So this is, we're being informed by this time, but we can also help inform it. And we'll talk about some things that we can do around that as we go along.
And I just want to also speak to, just really quickly, if we can go back, Cayelin, just for a moment, just the reality that of the cycle, the larger cycle that we're going through. And just to speak into, I mean, I can just say for myself, and Cayelin, I suspect for you as well, I can just say the last few days have been incredibly intense for me, and I would imagine for many others in this call. When we say all of this, though, it is true that people will have different experiences of it. It doesn't necessarily mean that every person is like, oh my God, this is so intense and hard. It's going to be different for everyone. It is. Again, it's the only concern of Pluto and of this deep descent is the transformation of the soul. And so that's going to look and feel differently for every one of us. But also it can be helpful to just understand this energy and to be able to work with it. And to know as well, what Cayelin and I were talking about yesterday was just how interesting it is that we also have all planets stationed direct at the same time that we have Venus in the underworld of Pluto. So there's this very interesting kind of two different kind of energies operating at the same time that can be a little bewildering, where it's like with all planets direct, there's like all this forward momentum and all this forward movement. Venus in the underworld of Pluto, that is more like a still point. That can feel, and so I know for myself, part of what it feels like is just this internal friction, because it's like part of me wants to move forward really quickly, and part of me is just like, slow down, be here, feel what you feel, no matter how uncomfortable it is. So I don't know. How has that been for you, Cayelin?
Well, I think I've had a little bit of both going on as well, and it's challenging. And, you know, the other piece I just want to bring in here too, because I just noticed, I'm like, I think I noticed this before, but had forgotten. Mars is at 19 Scorpio. So the sacred masculine also in a sign that is the most about death and rebirth and all of the shamanic things that we can associate with the Scorpio realm, and ultimately about empowerment, like Pluto and like Venus in the underworld. It's all about empowering, but we have to face everything that disempowers us first. And so there's just another statement, another thing that's going on that. And all the planets are direct, meaning I'll post I wrote a little article about this. It's like, if they're all moving forward together, and literally they never ever move backward. So just keep that in mind. But from our perspective, what we see when a planet is retrograde, it's retracing the stars it just crossed. And some like Pluto will never see retracing the stars because we can't see it. But Mars we could see, or Venus we can see, Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter, we can see them retracing those same stars, because from a visual perspective, that's what's happening. It's like they're moving back across the sky, taking a deeper look at something. But if they're all moving forward together, and this happens to be an extra long forward movement, usually it can sometimes last a few days, sometimes a couple of weeks, sometimes a month. But this one's lasting 3 months. It started on January 2nd and it goes to March 8th. So we have this forward movement, this like full speed ahead with all the planets working together, moving ahead, and Venus is in the underworld with Pluto.
Well, yeah, and also it's so amazing. What Cayelin and I were talking about yesterday too was what you're saying about Mars being in Scorpio, and it's like, again, that energy of forward movement, but also the deeper dive and the letting go. And then also Mars is still pretty close to Jupiter because they were conjunct a couple of days ago. And what I was just looking at, Cayelin, is that back in October or November, I can't remember, Venus was also conjunct Jupiter at very close to the same degrees of Scorpio, which is also something that's been happening. There are all these different layers that have to do with duality, polarity, and with the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, both doing this deeper work and trying to come to balance between the two of them. So that's also a deeper thread. I keep feeling like so much facing the shadow side of the relationship between the masculine and the feminine, within and without.
Yes, and we've been seeing that happen on the world stage. So it's so up.
It's so healed.
It's like we often say, we can't make this up. It's like it really, the two reflect each other and inform each other. It's not one or the other. Right. And it's not about predicting what's going to happen. It's about being open to what's the possibility and what the transformation can be for us. And how do we engage that transformation?
Absolutely.
So part of that is going to be, it's like, how do we come face to face with the dark goddess? That's literally in the story of Inanna going into the underworld. She comes face to face with her sister, Ereshkigal, who is the queen of the underworld. Inanna's queen of heaven. It's that light and dark polarity. And, what part of ourselves have we disowned, denied, repressed, suppressed, are not aware of, whatever that's about. And really giving space for that. So, the dark goddess, when we come face to face with her, she can be terrifying. She's got a lot of pain. She's got a lot of grief. She's got a lot of rage. And a lot of that's directed towards Inanna. Yeah. And the story, and the way the story is told. And so what kind of grief and rage and pain do we have inside of ourselves that we direct towards ourselves? Mm-hmm. That's something we want to pay attention to. And can we let that go? Can we be done with that? Can we grieve enough so that we can we take, anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's when the dark goddess is really able to surrender to her grief, to her frustration, to what's really her deep agony, that she is healed and she can release her gifts for the greater good. She's healed, she's empowered, and then those gifts can come forward. And so that's what we're intending here, and facing our shadow and facing that darker part of ourselves. And that's our opportunity. And it's a good thing, because without it, we need the dark and the light. We need both. It's not one or the other. It's not like one is better than the other.
Right.
And they exist together.
We need both of them. And it's such a riddle. And it's like, the other thing I feel with that is that the dark goddess is sometimes experienced as the saboteur, the inner saboteur, because she's the one who has this tremendous, in a way, this tremendous fear or jealousy of the part of ourselves that's very bright, that's very light, that's very much out and in the world. Sometimes we have to encounter the deeper aspect of ourself and our pain, our grief, and our suffering, and our rage. We have to meet that, and that other brighter part of ourselves has to surrender to that other part, so that we can experience all parts. But this sometimes comes through experiences that we might actually judge as being bad, or where we're out of control, or we did something wrong. But if we can look at it more instead from the perspective of, this is an opportunity for us to actually face these aspects of ourselves that we've been ashamed of, that we've been hiding, that we haven't wanted to look at, then once we recover that brighter, more out in the world aspect of self, there is a deeper resonance, there is a deeper connection to the soul that we actually encounter.
Right. We're whole.
Mhm.
Another way of saying it.
Yeah.
Right. So recognizing that the dark goddess, and this is true for men and women, she is a part of all of us. And when we can honor her and her process and what she's experiencing, and part of this is, you know, when Inanna goes into the underworld, and she's also a part of us, we're her as well. She's encountering all of the unresolved places of shadow and uncertainty and inconsistencies, and especially our cultural conditioning, which is a lot to do with sometimes we're doing things or we're believing things or we're experiencing things, and we're not even aware that it's from a conditioning that has nothing to do with the real truth of who we are. So when we can start to bring awareness to that, and that's really, I think, one of the things the dark goddess can do for us, is help bring awareness to that place that has limited us, that has kept us from being more of that wholeness of who we are. Those distortions and lies that are in the current culture that says we're supposed to be a certain way, or we're supposed to have a certain kind of experience. And maybe we don't even want that experience if we really thought about it. So our opportunity then is to transform these lower frequency energies into the higher frequency energies of love and above. So I think that when we're in the underworld, this is one of my prayers that I've been getting up with every morning, is that all the places where I have hurt and pain, guilt and shame, fear and blame, I offer it up to the violet flame, and I am transmuting those lower vibrational energies into the frequencies of love, because I want to be in a place of greater self-love for myself personally. So I'm using this underworld time to really energize them.
That's so beautiful. And it's so powerful, because what I think many of us are feeling is that this period right now is a very powerful preparatory. We're in preparation, in a sense, for the later stage when Venus comes out of the underworld a little further along in the spring, where we really do want to have all of our strength. We really do want to feel clean and clear, because there's so much that we're capable of and is needed from us at this time, of our full contribution. And so, yeah, I love that practice, Cayelin. That's powerful.
It is. I've been loving it. And it, might not work for everybody, but if it works for you, feel free to use it. Right?
Yeah. So, and I'll say too, just going back to that, that I had a vision the other night where I actually saw myself go into the underworld and meet the dark goddess, and I actually did see her. She shapeshifted, and I would encourage anybody, if you like to go into meditation, if it's easy for you to go into the visualization piece, to actually imagine and see the different aspects when you go into that underworld, that dark place, and you encounter this scary being, to see how she transforms and shapeshifts into different faces of yourself. Maybe I saw the victim, who I was as a victim, and that part of me that's like a poor me, or the part of me that is, really has so much rage and anger and reactivity in certain situations. And the trick then was to see the way that she shifted and shapeshifted in the different faces of myself that I'm ashamed of, or that are not comfortable for me, or that are not my higher self, not the part of me that I would like to show in the world. But every time that new face showed up, to really hold the space of love and compassion and full acceptance of that part of myself, not judgment, but an actual, like, seeing and feeling and hearing if she has something to say to me, whatever those aspects of myself are that I'm just deeply uncomfortable with, that I've seen show up, especially in the last several months of intensity, to just hold her as a witness and say, yes, you too. I accept and I love you also. And so maybe, there's some form of that meditation could arise for you that could also be helpful.
Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. So when you're making peace with the dark goddess, one of the things you can do is to acknowledge and honor your buried pain, or your not so buried pain. I was having this experience this last week where I was venting to somebody, and I was like, and then I got off the phone with this person, and I'm like, we've met, I know her, but I've just felt like, oh my God, I can't believe that I just did that. And that my opportunity here is to look at where I still have some residual stuff that I need to forgive myself and also another person for.
Mm.
And, you know, it was like not so buried. It was coming out. It was like, and I was sort of embarrassed that I had vented so much. I wrote her a note and I apologized. And she said, I'm so glad you felt comfortable enough to vent with me like that. Feel free to do it anytime. Call me whenever you need to. Thank you. So that's how we can be there to support each other, right? So, you know, there may be times when we just kind of have to like vent, but hopefully not to the person that we're upset with, because it's really not about them. So, you know, also acknowledging your pain is not about helping others, being kind, you know, and caring towards other people, achieving great things in the world. Those are all good. I'm not saying not to do them. But if you're doing that instead of dealing with your pain and dealing with your shadow and dealing with the things that need to be dealt with, I have a tendency to do that. That's not going to be helpful. So we can only transform this when we can accept it, acknowledge it, and also feel it, you know, to go to those deeper, darker places that are within us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, anyway, this is where you might need to cry with the dark goddess. You need to rage with her. You need to feel what you feel with her. You can kick and scream and yell and cuss. Hit a pillow. I do that. I've done that a lot. And boy, is that liberating when I've been needed to get something out, because it's not about another person. And even though that another person may trigger it for you, it's really not about them. It's about you. So you don't want to direct this towards anybody, as we already mentioned. Mm-hmm. But you know, when you give yourself permission to really feel what you feel, then it helps to liberate you. And then you can, you know, be in your true essence rather than, you know, operating from that buried pain that maybe causes you to let that energy come out sideways towards somebody that has nothing to do with what's going on. Ultimately, it's about you. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, anything else you want to say about that, Tami?
Oh, just when you say this, I just want to say, first of all, that at the very end, we're going to do a guided meditation. And I would recommend, you know, we always say, don't be driving when you listen to this. We probably didn't say that this time or mention that. So maybe you're driving. But at the very end, and I'll say this again at the end, but I will have a guided meditation where I will give you the opportunity to do some of these things. So if it's possible, what I will say then, and I'll say now, is that you may actually act these things out physically if you can find a space to feel safe doing that. And if not, you can imagine it all in your mind, because sometimes your mind doesn't know the difference. So if you want to beat a pillow in your imagination, you can do that.
Yes.
Actually, you can do it like that. Anyway. So
yes. Beautiful.
Part of what came up for me too is that I think to create the space by yourself to do this is really important. And I do also think that even though you don't want to vent towards other people, it can also be an opportunity for closeness with other people if you have a dear friend or beloved, sometimes you can also be in a space to feel these things with each other in a way that can be healing. So that's also something to open into.
Yes, and sometimes maybe you do need to have a conversation with somebody, but approaching it not from the place of shame or blame or, you know, unloading, just, you know, making it about them and it's their fault and whatever. It's really about looking at your own piece and seeing how you can work with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe come to a better place with that other person. But really do the deep grieving feeling place and the anger, rage, whatever that is, before you talk to your.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because then you won't have as much of a charge.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to do the questions?
Sure. So we always just to mention also that everything we're doing here it's kind of an example of the kinds of practices we do in our longer ceremonial Venus journey. So what we'll do in our evening star Venus journey, we always have questions. People use Venus journals. We have questions we use to really begin to dig into and explore whatever phase of the Venus cycle we're in. So some questions for this are, what have you resisted looking at within yourself or been unaware of that needs your attention and awareness. So again, when you're working with shadow, when you're in the underworld, it's like what's been hidden, what's been running the show without your awareness is right in front of your face often. And so now it's there. And so what are those things that are coming to your attention that you've been really kind of pushing away? So in what ways do you feel in the dark about your life path, who you are, what's next for you? It's okay. You know, this is the new year. So if you have any of that feeling of darkness, there can be an added sense of anxiety around, oh my gosh, this is the time of year when I'm supposed to be visioning. And I think for many of us, we are able to find some vision. But if you have any of that feeling of confusion or darkness, that's okay too. That's part of it. It may mean that there's the need for more of this healing and clearing work before you can really come into your clear vision. What are the new possibilities you can explore that reflect your true self and the gifts that you have to offer? And this is the part where this is a really beautiful layer of the underworld experience that does kind of really mesh and align with the new year energies, that as we release, as we lighten our load, as we let go of what it is we've been holding so tightly onto out of fear, what we've been trying to control and manage that needs to be surrendered to the divine, to the dark goddess, as we let go of those things, we're creating the space so that we are allowing in the new vision, the new excitement, the new enthusiasm for life. So it's not like this is just the whole time until February 19th. We're just like, you know, feeling like shit and, excuse my language, feeling bad and feeling heavy and letting, it may be, you know, the whole way through, we're like, it's more like we have a layer we let go of and then we feel the light flow in, or it might be more like that rhythm or pulse. We're all different.
Right. And it can be helpful to remember that Venus is with the sun. She is with the light. And she's blinded by the light. She's, you know, feels dark, and she's facing her dark places within herself, but she's literally within the light.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think what's so cool about that too is that it's almost like a little bit of a foreshadowing of the way that this is very much a fire year, where we have so many planets in the fire signs and going through fire cycles, and understanding that fire and the sun itself in the underworld experience is there to incinerate or burn away falsity.
Yes.
So we're in deep preparation for that transformational process.
Yes, and really awakening our true selves, as you know, this is all about that. And so the darkness of hatred and pain and suffering are evident in our collective experience. We can see that happening, and people aren't necessarily taking responsibility for their part of it, and they're trying to blame other people or have it be about somebody else. So if we see it outside of ourselves, it means it's within us.
Yes.
I've been having a lot of experience with that lately.
Yeah.
When I catch myself going, are you kidding me? Or seriously, or whatever. And I'm like, oh, great, there's some more work for me. Anyway, so then how do we access the pain and heal it within us? Because that really ultimately helps heal in the greater collective. And that's the gift we give ourselves as well as we give the world. Woohoo. And we have arrived at a time when it is time to awaken more fully the powerful, independent, feminine rising up within us to express her true self. So the question is, are you ready? Are you willing? Are you up for that? And most of the time I say yes. I do have my moments.
Yes, I know. And we're human, and that's part of the beauty of, it's beautiful to be human. It's beautiful to have this contrast. But in the underworld, Venus with Pluto, again, speaking into this really deep dynamic of today. And we were excited that we got to do it today, the workshop, the webinar. It's so amazing. I think it's one of the most thrilling things about the work we get to do, that we do these ceremonial activations right in the window of when it's happening astrologically. I mean, it's just powerful. But with Underworld Venus with Pluto, it magnifies possible feelings of powerlessness over what is happening. The intent is to force surrender through events that may shake you to your core. So just remember that this is a time to disengage the part of our like judgmental or critical psyche that says that that we can control everything around us, or we can control and manage everything. It's a positive thing to surrender what is outside of our control. And like Cayelin keeps saying, and I love the reminder of this, in these times of intensity. It could be that you're in an altercation with your beloved or your boss or whatever. It could be you're having a conflict with someone outside of yourself or something, but it really is about you. It really is about, that's where you have the power. And in some case, I think it really is about like the vision that I had, where the power you have is to embrace that aspect of yourself before you do anything else to it, to really see it and acknowledge and honor whatever that is in yourself that's being reflected in the world around you, to love it anyway, to love yourself anyway.
And to also remember that the only thing we actually have control over is our response to what's happening.
Right.
And so if we can say, and sometimes we're forced to surrender, but sometimes we can choose to surrender as well. Mm-hmm. And that if we can just say, okay, this is what's happening, and I'm choosing to be the best I can be in this situation. That can help. It may not change the situation, but it can help change your experience of the situation.
Yes. And I think part of this too is like so many other things. It's like when you surrender control over what is outside of your control, there is also a corresponding acknowledgement of radical self-responsibility, which is, I love this, we can engage the dark goddess within, surrender to the death she facilitates, often the death of this idea that we can control and manage others or experiences outside of ourselves, bringing our inner darkness to the light of awareness. And then it's time to let go of habits around self-destruction or justifying behavior or being weak, need for revenge, manipulation for power and control over others or situations, to really kind of to do a deep bow and to let go of, because all of those things are ways of trying to manage and control, and they're also ways of not trusting our deeper soul and our deeper path. And Cayelin, I love what you do in the mornings, and I actually hope, because I just really feel like that's such an antidote. And I really hope that at the end, actually, you can actually write that down. Could you? Because I want to do it.
Okay. Sure.
It's paradoxically, it is holding that higher intent at the same time that we're willing to face the darker aspect of ourselves. So you may find you're a catalyst or shadow magnet, whether you want to be or not. That can happen too, because it's not just you who's having conflicts with people outside of yourself. It's also many others who might be not really truly seeing you, just projecting whatever they're dealing with onto you. And so to also not take it personal.
Yeah. Although it can feel very personal.
Yeah.
So it's not always easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as much as possible, and when you have awareness, right? So you become aware and like, oh, this person's being catalyzed by something I said that I did not mean it that way, but they're taking it this way, and they're having this whole experience around it. And I didn't really mean for that to be the case, but that's what's happening.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, that's their process and you have no control over it. And it isn't even really what you meant. So there's nothing you can really do it, except unless the person might be willing to listen to what you have to say, but they're still having their experience, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely. So Pluto up levels the initiatory strength of Venus in the underworld domain. The underworld goddess does not care about how you feel. You cannot escape this initiation by being good. Emphasizing that again. This is also about chaotic events beyond your control. You cannot outrun or escape. Surrender is the only option. And again, there is, and I think even holding the intent to transform, we hold the intent to transform what has been in the shadow and the aspects of self that are needing to be healed and cleared. But there's something interesting, Cayelin, for me. There always is when we have this discussion and when we do this. Right. There is, again, a paradox in it, right?
Yeah.
It's not about being good, but we're wanting to transform and transmute. So what is the space in between?
Right. Well, and the thing is because I know in certain Pluto cycles I've been through, and even before I knew what Pluto was, but looking back, I was like, I am a good person. I am doing everything right. And my first marriage was falling apart. My ex-husband was having an affair. No matter how good I was, I couldn't stop it. I couldn't make it be different. And I was like, this is so unfair. I'm a good person. you can't get out of it by being good.
Yeah, it's not a rational experience. It's not
No, it's
cause
not.
and effect.
It's
Yeah.
not at all. And so, and the thing that happened to me in that situation was it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It got me out of a really bad situation that I would have never left because I was so committed, being Venus and Aries myself. You know, I make a commitment, I stick to it.
Right?
All in 100%, even if it's hell. So thankfully, all that happened and got me out of it. And I was in a Pluto cycle at the time. I didn't know, and I learned that later. Looking back, I'm like, thank you, Pluto. You took me through hell. I would have preferred to have a different experience, but now I'm really glad I've had this experience. So, yeah.
And of course, even as we say all of this, depending on the Pluto cycle, depending on your personal experience with Aries and with this and whatever else is happening in your chart, for some people it's going to be a subtle process. For some people it's going to be really extreme.
Like the tsunami is coming. In fact, in that particular Pluto cycle, I had a dream, and in the dream I went out in front of my house and I said, "Look out! Here comes the tsunami!" And I was like, ducking.
Wow.
And I thought I was going to be hit by this wall of water. And when I opened my eyes, and it's just around my ankles, I was like, "Oh, it's not so bad."
Wow, that's amazing.
But I was like, I was ready, but I was also like trying to protect myself at the same time. Anyway, so here we have the tsunami, and you can't, if that wall of water is coming, there's nothing you can do to stop it. So, but maybe you get lucky and it's just water around your ankles.
Awesome.
The other thing is that Pluto does up-level the gifts of Venus in the underworld. And so through this and greater empowerment that Pluto is bringing by helping us to dismantle, to dissolve, to no longer be the caterpillar, but to become the butterfly, to regenerate through alchemy, through death and rebirth and total transformation, like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, then we're stripping away that false self to reveal the truly empowered self. And then that's where we've discovered those buried treasures that are within the fear and the pain and the rage and the jealousy and the whatever, that we're feeling and transforming. And so then the result is that we can reveal our greatest strengths and personal gifts as a result when we can engage this process. So thank you, Pluto. And thank you, Venus in the Underworld. Aha.
Absolutely. So we also, we'll always have questions for the particular phase of the Venus cycle, but also for the particular goddess, the meta goddess who's in question. So questions for Aries in the underworld. So the part of, this is for all of us. This is some of the energy that we're also working with. So in what areas of my life have I been in constant battle? Would it be better for me to lay down my armor and surrender? And I'll just say that I recently had a very profound epiphany around that over the last, that I literally, I'm aware of the cycle, but it just really came to me so deeply how I've been in such resistance to every single thing, it seems like, coming into my life over the last year, because I realized at some stage it really is, it's been about taking apart my old life, my old self, and it feels like death. And it is a death to the old self. And that's what these transformations can be about. And a part of ourselves can fight very fiercely to ensure that that doesn't happen. So would it be better to lay down your armor and to surrender to a deep transformation? And what aspects of self or identity have I outgrown and I can let go of now? That's true for many of us. We're going through identity shifts often now because there's so much growth that we've been going through that we need to really open ourselves to often, I think many people who are in these fields of being light workers or being healers or being, this light, you're bringing your bright feminine light into the world. Much will be asked of you in this coming year. And so part of that is letting go of your limited self. And I see that everywhere. What will it take for me to meet my unwanted feelings of pain, fear, sorrow, dread, rage, grief with acceptance and love? Yep, that keeps coming up. Where am I pushing, managing, fixing, and controlling? Where would it be better for me to allow life to take its course?
So just something that you can know about these questions are great questions to journal with. You could pick one and work with it. We've got still a couple more months of Venus in the underworld. So if you want to work with these questions and see where they take you. And I would recommend working with one and just journaling on it or meditating on it, or, you know, however it is that you can tune in and get insights, work with it in that way. And they're excellent.
And what we always say with the questions is look for the ones that really light you up, where you're like, you have a big yes when you hear the question, but also consider the ones where you have resistance.
Especially the ones who have resistance.
Yes.
Right? That's informative right there.
So the Aries meta-goddess in the underworld, regardless of the sign she's moving through, she's undergoing a total death process, courageously facing and allowing all old hesitations, unfinished business, fear and timidity, not enoughness, or other blocks that hold her back from a full embrace of her fierce feminine nature to die. This is when we encounter any remaining blocks and fears that hold us back from boldly and wholeheartedly claiming our purpose for incarnating at this time. This is the time to let go and let fall away any and all self-doubt, self-judgment, self-criticism, or self-abandonment, allowing the new bright flame of our emerging inner Aries goddess to ignite and burn ever brighter, preparing us for our ascent and the full reclaiming of our fierce feminine power.
You know, this, because the Aries goddess has been so repressed and suppressed by the patriarchy, every single woman, regardless of whether you have Aries or not, really can benefit from engaging this archetype of the feminine and cultivating her within you, and whatever it is that disallows her from stepping forward and being stronger within you. So yeah, we just encourage people to really, we want this goddess back, in her strength and in her power within us, within each of us, within men, within women, within the culture, wherever she needs to show up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So some of the tools and practices that we use or we suggest, we have a lot more, it's way more in depth. But for people in our courses for the Underworld journey is to make a Venus in the Underworld altar. And some of the elements of that might include, you might have mantras or phrases or images that represent the aspects of self that you want to let go of. Might also include food and water, to really feed the dark goddess in a sense. We also consider that in the waters of life or part of the Inanna story. Keeping a Venus journal, again, working with those questions, and also just whatever comes up for us in this period. It's really powerful and potent. And then also we practice sun gazing, because when you look at the sun, and this is just as soon as possible after sunrise or before sunset, you can build your tolerance to looking at the sun directly for very short periods at first, but then very consistently, raising that amount of time. When you practice sun gazing, which has a lot of benefits, there's a link later, you're also gazing at Venus. You're also engaging with Venus because Venus is with the sun. So that's another practice we do. And then amping up your energy, like through running, hiking, dance, breath work, anything that really gets that energy moving can be very positive in the underworld process.
Especially when it's Venus and Aries.
Yes, right.
Aries goddess.
Right.
She does not like to sit still. So
no.
Yeah. So we have these additional resources that you can access Oprah's speech, and also access some more insights on the Venus with the sun, or sun gazing practice that has so many benefits. I'm not going to go through them right now, but definitely worth your time and energy to connect in with. So I think we're ready for our journey with you, Tami.
Yes. Okay. So again, like I mentioned in the beginning, sorry, I just have to make sure I'm shifting. To find a place, if you are able to find a place where you can move around, a place where you can get on the floor, a place where you can make noise if possible, that's ideal. If that's not possible, if all you can do is sit where you are, then just know that everything I describe, you can actually imagine in your mind and you can visualize. And this also can be beneficial because, again, the mind doesn't necessarily know the difference between completely, although movement is amazing, but the mind can entrain to visualization as if we are doing this thing. So, all right, so let's just take a moment to just take a couple deep breaths and center ourselves into our physical bodies. And let's begin the meditation by standing up. Now raise your arms and feel for a moment the spirit, the goddess essence that fills your physical body and expands beyond it. What is the sensation of your feminine spirit? What is its color? What is its temperature? How might it taste? And now face your palms to the sky. Now take a moment to feel who you are as the divine goddess. Imagine that your body is growing enormous. So enormous it is as if your head is bumping up against the celestial dome of stars, planets, sun, and moon. Your feet are planted on the beautiful Mother Earth. See her as the living being that she is. And you are the divine bridge connecting earth and sky. And now bring your awareness to your breath and feel how as you inhale, you are drawing in from your hands and the crown of your head, the light, the intelligence, the pure love energy streaming down to you from the stars, the planets, the sun, and the moon. When you exhale, breathe out the light, the joy, the pure love energy that is your very feminine spirit, outwards in all directions, blessing the entire cosmos with the grace, the beauty, the strength and power of your pure goddess presence. Now take a moment to enjoy this experience of fully embodying and filling your feminine spirit, your goddess nature, and radiating it into the world and into the cosmos. This is your true nature. This is your limitless spirit. This is who you truly are. And now imagine that your body is returning to its usual size. And now kneel on the ground, perhaps going into child's pose, if that is comfortable, or another pose where your head is on the earth and you are bowing to her. Feel the weight of your body pulled to the earth by gravity. Truly feel the heaviness of being in a physical body. Become aware of any areas in your body where you are carrying pain, trauma from your own life experience, or trauma or pain from the mothers and grandmothers who live inside of you. Let yourself feel the sensation of that pain or suffering, grief or sorrow. Give your full attention and awareness to these sensations and feelings in your body. And now allow these sensations to take on a life of their own, perhaps becoming a sound, a moan, a growl, a scream, to release the pain and suffering of the feminine that is ready to be let go, to be released fully. Maybe the pain and suffering becomes words, a complaint, a prayer where you speak the truth of the inner dark goddess. What makes her angry? What breaks her heart? What is she totally fucking sick and tired of? Let it all go. Let it out. You may choose to get up and move your body, shaking out that pain, that suffering, the ugliness you feel inside, the grief, the sorrow of living in a world that causes such harm, such suffering to the feminine, to the earth. Let yourself feel. Let yourself grieve. And now return to the child's pose on the body of the mother. Feel the heaviness once again and let yourself dissolve. Let all the pain and suffering you have been willing to feel dissolve and be returned to Mother Earth. See and feel that dark energy be received and transformed into rich, fertile soil. See a beautiful forest growing all around you. Breathe in the new life you are creating in your life and your world by your willingness to feel and to heal. And sense and feel the aliveness, the joy surrounding you, inside of you, as you claim your place in the world. And feel again for a moment that brightness of spirit that is your true essence. And feel and sense for a moment the beautiful goddess essence that you are. And sense and feel any ways that the tone, the color, the sensation of this essence might have changed. Sense and feel perhaps the ways that you are more deeply connected to this earth, to the trees, to the alive world around you. And know that this work that you are doing is so powerful. All the ways you are willing to claim and face all aspects of your being is so powerful. Your willingness to be present, to be a true human being on this earth is so courageous. And now return into the room where you began. Return back into the seated position wherever you were. And come back into this circle, knowing and feeling and recognizing the power and the beauty and the brilliance of who you are. Okay. We are complete.
Yay. So I just want to say that one of the things that is posted and we will post the PDF with the video is the transcript of Oprah's speech, which is cool. It's like, it's great to listen to it, but it's also good to read it. Mm-hmm. Good to have that opportunity. And then, Tami and I are starting a couple of classes. January 18th, we're going to be starting a class on the Venus Signature Series that's based on really getting personal with the goddess, your expression of the goddess, who you came to be. And that not just the sign Venus is in, but it's the phase of the Venus cycle you're born into. It's the meta goddess that you carry. It's the inner star phases and the outer star phases and lots of different things that we look at to get a deeper understanding of what that signature is, what that Venus signature is, what your divine feminine expression is really intended to be. And then we'll be starting the ceremonial ascent class on March 8th. And if you decide you want to do both classes with us, we have a special offer for that. So you can go to these links, and I think those links are also will be on the page with the video when we post it. I don't know if there's anything else we want to say, but we can, unless you have something else, Tami, we can probably open it up for.
Yeah, let's just open it up for a few. It is 8, but we can take it for maybe the next 10 minutes. You want to say that?
Sure.
So I have muted everyone, but made it so that you can unmute yourselves. So if you're on the computer, you should be able to look and see where you can unmute yourself, or if you're on the phone, it could be *6. We do also, while we're waiting, Lori Gosselin said, "Hi, Tami." Hi, Lori. This is messages. And then when we were first starting, this is Felina. Felina said, "Awesome. I included Oprah's speech in my own post about Venus Kazemi. She's such a perfect person to represent this." And, just for those of you, Venus Kazemi, that's another way to describe Venus with the sun.
Yeah. Right. We tend to call it the underworld, but a lot of astrologers call it Kazemi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so if anyone is wanting to unmute and offer any kind of question, you're so welcome to.
Or insight or aha.
Or just your own your experiences in this.
Which that meditation was amazing, by the way. Thank you, Tami.
Thank you, Cayelin.
I loved getting down on the floor and doing the child pose. That was fun.
Yeah.
And just having that sense of everything dissolving and letting it go into the mother, that was really great.
It was totally different than what I expected to do, but it's what came. I love these because I have to have a vision first, and with these they've been so fun because they often end up being kind of simple. So I wonder if people are, if you want to be unmuted and you don't know how, you can also go into the chat and you can send a chat and I'll unmute you. And if we don't have anyone who wants to offer any insights or anything, that's fine too. But nope.
So Sophia Mona Lisa wants to be unmuted.
Okay. Sophia, unmute. Okay. Hi, Sophia.
Thank you. Hello. That was beautiful. So there's two things that were in your slides that just were like arrows hitting my heart. Yesterday was my birthday, and I had this really overwhelming emotional flood about my mother, my relationship with my mother, and my relationship with my sister. And this morning, and it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good at all. This morning, I realized that this momentum about these stories about my sister and my mother were like a tsunami wave coming at me. So when you had that slide about the tsunami wave, that was, totally what I was realizing for myself this morning. And I forget what the other thing was now. But it was just as powerful. Oh, well, it must not be that important. But anyhow, so I want to thank you. Oh, this is what it was. So I realized while you were talking about the dark goddess, which Scorpio is my meta goddess, that this dynamic with my sister, and I never realized it before, that this whole flippin' dynamic with my sister is this Inanna Ereshkigal play. And it just like hit me in the face when you had that slide up there. So again, I want to thank you.
Great. That's so awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. Thank you, Sophia. That's so amazing. That's funny. I forgot this part, but when I had that visualization where I saw the different aspects of myself as Ereshkigal in my vision, I did also actually see one of my sisters as well. That can really relate to that. I can totally
right. And I have been estranged from my sister for, I don't know, 30 well, no, I guess more like 20, almost 30 years. Let's put it that way. And there's no, and I've tried to, see if we could mend it, but there's no mending it. And when I started doing this work, that's when I realized she has really been the dark goddess to me. Yeah. She is my dark goddess expression. And I tend to be more of love and light, idealistic, and that kind of thing. And she's Venus and Scorpio. So she's that.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's funny that you say you've had that estrangement from her, because my sister and we go through cycles where it's like full on and where there's just no contact and there's all this yucky feeling. And then it kind of, it ebbs, and then we tentatively start to maybe send a text message to each other. And it just has, every time I've thought, okay, this time it's going to be different. And then it has always ended up being ugly again. And so I'm ready now for that to be finished. I no longer am desiring to have those experiences. And I really believe that I'm at this point of putting that behind me with this Pluto energy. And so I can really appreciate you sharing the pain of the separation from a sister.
Yeah. Yeah, and in some ways, sometimes one of the things that I did finally come to was because there was so much drama, right? and I kept trying to figure out how to make it be less drama, and it's not something I can control. And she's got the things she's going to do, and it's whatever. So
Absolutely. I hear you. Absolutely. I mean, in that picture that you had of Kali, which I just love Kali. And I can even see my sister in her like most outrageous moments. She looks like Kali to me, with the tongue sticking out and everything.
That is so great. Thank you so much, Sophia. I think there's probably other people. I imagine there's other people on this call who will listen to this later that will really appreciate you sharing about that as well, because I don't think we're alone in that experience. It seems to be a fairly common theme I encounter quite a lot.
Well, and I think too, yes. And I think for some of us, it might be a little more subtle. Like actually with me and my sister, I think we've taken turns playing the role of Inan and Aresh Kagal. It's a little bit subtler, and we're actually quite close also. But so, yeah, Sophia, thank you for sharing that. And I think it makes me also think that there's something in this story about just the wound, healing the wound between women, between sisters in general, inside of ourselves.
Or soul sisters. It doesn't even have to be a blood sister,
Right.
That too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, dears.
Thank you so much. So is there anybody else who'd like to say anything? Lace.
Yes, Lace.
She wants to be unmated.
Really, Lace? Oh, we love. So awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yay.
Yeah, I'd like to. Anyway, I just, can I talk? Am I?
Yes. Yeah, you're unmuted.
Oh, I just want to say how much I appreciate both of you bringing up, venting the feelings. Oh, thank goodness for a friend of mine, Kathy. I hope you're listening, Kathy, who has just listened to me and, just been that safe place to fall with the crying and everything that's going on. And thinking about, you said, Cayelin, I felt so bad. I vented. And, that idea of Pluto being down there, I think of volcanic, and what does a volcano do? It spews, it's got a vent. And when it really goes off, it goes off. And there's a lot of material that goes flying. And so I think, that's encouraged me, knowing that Pluto was there, that it's okay, probably for the first time, to really let my feelings out. And again, I just think that's so important in this particular phase, that we don't miss that opportunity. It's either get it out or it's still going to be within. And I'm choosing to find those safe buddies or that pillow to let it out. So thank you for both of you really going there too, how that experience has been there for you in the last few days.
Thank you, Lace. I love the volcano imagery.
Yeah.
I needed that.
Yeah, spew all you want.
Well, and I felt bad because I didn't really know this person that well. Like, I was like, you know, if it was been a friend, it would have been maybe a different story. But it was like somebody I didn't know that well. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? After it was all over, I was like mortified that I had done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but something set me off. And it's like, once you're spewing, it's like, okay, can't stop till it's done.
Yeah, you can't stop a volcano. You've got to just let it spew.
Right?
It would be really bad if you tried to.
Yeah. This was just a great coming together of all of this right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lace. And Tim Yahazim, I just want to shout out to you. I'm so happy to see you're on the call, and thank you. I'm so glad that the conversation has been really good for you. And so awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Awesme.
You just ended a 5-year relationship yesterday. Oh my gosh. Kali on my wall right now. Right.
Oh,
Imagine.
wow.
I can imagine.
Wow.
So this is probably pretty perfect for you right now.
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
Very real for so many. And then Sunny says, it felt so powerful to release the wounding from my feminine lineage. Awesome. So glad. I think I really do feel those grandmothers and mothers inside of us. They need expression. Jem is saying, so all of this, feeling it, and I love that my experience completely matches the stories being said without any priming. Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jem. Yay. All right, well, and if we don't have anybody else, I think we can maybe wrap this up.
Yeah, okay.
Great. Thank you all so much for being part of it and for joining us and adding your energy to our energy to, this sort of ceremonial opportunity to celebrate Venus, the Sun, and Pluto all together today.
Yes.
At this particular time. So it's really powerful. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And Sophia says, blessings to everyone. And I'm going to unmute everyone so we can just say goodbye. And if you want, we can put it into, you want to take your screen share off, Cayelin?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we can see the gallery view.
There we go.
Okay,
hi, everybody.
So I'm muting all so everybody can say goodnight. Okay.
Good night.
So sweet to see everyone. Yay, so awesome to see you, Di.
Bye.
And everybody else.
Thank you. And for all the people that aren't visible,
yes.
we love you too.
We do. We love you. And we love all the people who are going to listen later too.
Right?
So,
Awesome.
have a beautiful, beautiful night.
And great success with releasing and letting go in the underworld.
Absolutely. May we come out transformed.
Indeed. Maybe we be the butterfly.
The fierce feminine butterfly. Right. Have a beautiful night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.